is there any room in the calculation of whether to forgive for the impact of terror on the ability of people to behave logically? With the amygdala in the driver's seat, good judgment often goes out the window. There was a lot of terror these past few years. I do think that it can be mitigating, but I also feel that a lot of people really leaned into their fear. A lot of people relished being fearful and scared and helpless and hopeless. And I don't know, I wouldn't want to be the adjudicator of how much you did or didn't, and therefore how much, if you leaned into it, if you consciously allowed yourself to be more scared, more fearful than you needed to be, then I don't want to mitigate. Then you need to really own up to all the stuff more so, rather than if you actually were carried away in a such that you absolutely could not cause yourself to see reason because you were so scared, so overcome with fear. This is the sort of thing that obviously, court cases can hinge on with regard to whether or not you had the mental capacity to understand what you were doing. With those cases, it's one of those things I've always felt like I'm so glad that I'm not in the business of adjudicating these. I just do not want to be involved. I saw way too much of people relishing their fear.
I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to say it's quite mitigating, but only in one circumstance, which is that you own up to the role that it played in unhooking reason, right? And the point is, look, if you don't own up to that, if it's not in your own analysis of how you screwed this up, then you're not safe, because that'll happen again.
Yeah.
Right? But if, for example, Sam, who was quite clearly terrified of COVID, and, there was plenty of reason to be frightened of it. I think it's much more destructive than the case fatality rate suggests, but terrified is not a reasonable, it is not a position conducive to reason, as the question suggests. And so if Sam were to say, look, my fear got the better of me, and it caused me to misunderstand where I was and who was speaking rationally, then the answer is, well, now we know something, which is that, A, you know that your fear will do this. And that means if it happens again, we can say, hey, Sam, is it happening again? Is this your fear driving?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I would say it is very mitigating, but only if you push it to consciousness and are capable of recognizing what role it played. Other than that, the point is, okay, that's a defect in your cognition, and we need to be concerned about what role it plays in everything.
Well, I think that's a better answer overall than the one I gave. But I also, mine is a narrower response by a lot. But I also do feel that it's relevant. I don't know how to make it manifest, though. Like I said, I don't know how to operationalize the degree to which you chose to be fearful. Maybe your answer eliminates the need to, but I'm not compelled that it does.
Well, I guess I was steering clear of your assertion that people were inviting fear, which strikes me as totally plausible, right? People go to horror films because there's some part of them that delights in fear, and
I think, fortunately, I think this is one of these personality traits or proclivities that is going to be. And I'm going to use the word gendered here because this is a place where we should be able to talk about sex differences in behavior, which is gendered, average sex differences, that women are more likely to be willing to be in fear, I think. And I think that some women will be more likely to be totally unwilling, like no way, no how, not going to go there, that thing is dangerous. But some, I would think that being willing to be in fear would go hand in hand with sort of wanting the Prince Charming to ride over the horizon, wanting someone to come save you. And so the looking for authority is, oh, isn't Fauci so dreamy? Isn't this that, looking for the person who's going to come and rescue you from your own fear and hopelessness and helplessness is, extraordinarily dangerous, and I think is a big part of what we were seeing through a lot of the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting. You have exactly the inverse understanding of that pattern, the narrow part. I would say men have an incentive to get women into positions that trigger their fear, like going to a scary movie, right?
Yeah.
Or a
but
scary
we had a population who would become fearful. So to the degree that Fauci made, who were the men here, right?
Right.
So there were too many. There were too many, and the fact that a lot of the people who were perpetrating the most damage were women. The public figures like Walensky, like Psaki, who are pronounced Biden's first or press secretary. But they were encouraging the fear, but it would have worked differently, right? Like they were triggering the fear, I think, mostly in women by being like, if you care about your children, you will be just as scared and do just as stupid things as I'm doing, sort of thing, right? Whereas, yes, I think in a the word is abused, but in a toxic proto relationship between a man and a woman, a man may exactly want to make a woman more fearful so that she feels like she has to cling to him in order to be safe. Right.
Right. And I do think that there's it's kind of a crossover here that you're pointing to, where something figured out that it could frighten people. And I don't think we know enough about, maybe somebody does, but I don't know enough about what people, and it probably is very different by sex, what people tend to do when frightened. In other words, the mass formation thing, people driven together in terror.
Yeah.
Right? They may find each other. They may trust people that they would never trust or even like under other circumstances.
Right.
Because the point is, it is, the huddled group in the cave with the scary thing outside that, becomes the mode of survival.
It felt like circling the wagons to people, I think. And, for a while, it was those of us who were unvaccinated who were the marauding hordes, putting them all at risk.
Yep.
And, how was that made to be the narrative? It wouldn't have worked if they hadn't felt the need to circle the wagons in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's quite right. It was like, the dimensionless pod that was immune from the virus, fearful of those who refused to do their part and had become zombies.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That was the narrative.
Yeah.
And oddly, didn't turn out to be that way.
No, it was the dimensionless pod zombies that we had to worry about.
Yeah, plot twist.
Okay, next question. Although, actually, I feel like there was one that was relevant to what we were just talking about. Let me see if I can quickly find it. Maybe not. This is not exactly what I was thinking, but friends and family, etc., labeled me as problematic and worse when I objected after getting pericarditis. Who was putting whom at risk? So it's...
Wow. Yeah, I have to say, when I went to the conference in Britain,
like May of this year, yeah.
My central theme and the message that I believed needed to get out was, you can tell what this beast is by its gaslighting of the injured.
Yeah.
Right? If you think the injured are rare, then you ought to be very surprised that it's treating these people as if they're making it up, right? And that that the fact that it will gaslight the very people who, in some cases, signed up for trials that weren't safe, were then injured and are now being treated as pariahs, that thing tells you you're dealing with an immoral monster that will do anything.
Yeah, it does. It does. And this is a little bit related too. The other day I saw a very long queue of people. It took me a moment to realize they were lining up for vaccination. Mostly older folk, but a good minority of younger people too. Will I turn out to be overly pessimistic that I saw this as a contemporary version of camp prisoners queuing for a promised warm shower? ? From Matt in the UK.
Yeah, I don't know what to think. It seems to me, if you think back to the model that we were talking about during the podcast, it seems to me that the evidence that should tell you that whatever mechanism you were using to establish for yourself what was true, an ever larger fraction of people should have run across some evidence that what they were doing wasn't working.
Yeah.
Right? A person that they know who's been injured, for example. And that means that the people who are still adhering to that narrative, they're in deep. Whatever mechanism they're using to fend off information is industrial strength. Mm-hmm. And, that's what I would think if I saw a line of people still eager for this, in spite of the fact that, the likelihood that it's doing you more harm than good is quite clear.